How did you know that property was a good thing? Where did the property element come in?
Some of the stuff I was doing would be unheard of. The speed at which I was doing things. I don't want comfort. I'm always looking for the next thing, say the next opportunity.
What would you say to someone who's sitting at home thinking, sounds great, but there's no frigging way?
Being in the property game and building a portfolio is not a comfortable thing to be doing.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Airbnb Nomads podcast. And on this week's Property Education Masterclass, we're joined by the very inspirational Lisa O'Reilly. Now, Lisa's going to tell us her entire story of how she took the leap from a high-flying corporate career to where she is today, owning and continuing to build a very large and very successful HMO portfolio, as well as a mix of serviced accommodation units. Now, I found this episode really inspiring because it actually shows you what is possible when you say, screw it, let's do it. I know I can achieve more. I know I'm worthy of more, and I know I want more. And Lisa shows you what can really be done. Now, guys, if you get value from this episode, if this episode inspires you and pushes you to become your best self, I would ask you to please follow the show and leave a review. It helps us more than I can possibly tell you, and I would really, really appreciate it. Until we get to that point, grab yourself a cuppa, get comfortable. This is a fantastic episode. I can't wait for you to hear it. Here we go. Hey, Lisa, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Alex. How's it going?
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to this one. First of all, let me just say, like I said to you before the podcast, I'm in Mallorca. The island has absolutely blown up after Easter. So if there is a few random dogs barking or screaming babies, our listeners will have to forgive me because, the island's got busy. But I think we'll be okay. Thanks for coming on, Lisa. I'm excited for a few different reasons for this episode. First of all, we're going to get into it, but I think what you've done so far is absolutely amazing in the HMO market and various other bits and pieces, which we're going to talk about. But I am a huge advocate for women in business, women who are pressing forward, achieving big things, getting out there, improving themselves. And, so I think that's absolutely amazing. I think it's going to be an inspiration for other women who are out there listening to this to see exactly what's possible, right? So I think that's really, really awesome. Also, the second reason why I'm excited is because, again, we're going to get into it, but I kind of grates me a little bit when people say, oh, look, it's okay for him, it's okay for her with their, ready-made, ready-cooked business, that just kind of fell out the sky. But what you're going to talk about and what people are going to hear is how you very cleverly saw an opportunity, saw a gap in the market and exploited that to get to where you are today. And I think that is a really big sign of an entrepreneur, right? It's the mindset of seeing an opportunity, grabbing it with both hands and getting stuck in. So, it's slightly different what you do and where you do it. And I'm excited to kind of talk about that. So Lisa, why don't we start like I normally do? I'm interested to hear about your background, your story, where you've come from, how you got to where you are today. So why don't we just start right there? Tell us a little bit about who Lisa O'Reilly is.
Right. So I'm originally from London, actually. Moved over to Ireland, Waterford, when I was in 1997. So I've been over here now many, many years. I did all my schooling over here. I qualified as a chartered accountant. So me and my sister went down the chartered accountancy route, but she's a year older than me, and I suppose I just went into accountancy because she did. So I, just followed my
Yeah,
sister's
big
say.
sis.
My big sis, yeah, I was hugely competitive, more so than what she was. She didn't realize I was just kind of trying to compete with her the whole time. But yeah, I was hugely competitive. So if she could do it, I could do it. So yeah, basically went into chartered accountancy. I trained with the Big Four, Ernst and Young. And I then went on to work in some big kind of multinational pharmaceutical companies. But I could never really, I kept on jumping jobs every maybe 3 or 4 years. I could never settle in a job. And I was constantly moving jobs and the first thing I'd ask was, what's the holiday policy? What's the annual leave
Hmm.
policy? And the more the better,
Yep.
because I love going on my son holidays, and I hated having to ask people for permission to go on holidays, and I just dreaded the idea of, like, oh, it'd be grand because when you're 65 and you retire, then you can live the life of Riley. Um, so it was constantly kind of a bugbear of mine that I was working in this corporate environment, and it was just so restrictive. So around 3 years ago, I decided that I had enough. It was just before COVID, no, just after COVID. It was 2021, and I had enough. And I had one buy-to-let property at the time, and I was actually going to sell that because the tenant was kind of just, looking for a new washing machine, and something else was broken. And he was just, in my eyes, he was just being a nuisance. I was actually going to sell that because it wasn't, it was cash flowing, but it wasn't, amazing or
Lisa,
anything.
can I just jump? Can
But
I
then in
just,
20,
sorry to cut you, can I just jump in there real quick? Because
yeah,
I'm always, when I'm listening, I'm always very, very aware that when people are listening to these podcasts, and maybe they are at absolute ground zero, right? So they're in their job day to day, week to week, grinding, hustling, push just to live, right? Just to survive. And a lot of the time, the guests that come on here, they casually drop in, oh, yeah, and I had 3 buy-to-lets, or, I had a couple of properties. So let's just backtrack a little bit and tell me about, why did you end up with that property? Were you an accidental landlord? Did you educate yourself? How did you know that property was a good thing? Where did the property element come in?
I suppose that came from my parents. So they bought this particular property, the one I'm
Hmm.
talking about. They bought it back just after the crash for like peanuts, and there was some sort of tax incentive to sell it 7 years later. So they said, "Look, Lisa, you can buy it, or we're going to sell it on the public market. But if you, I think it's a good idea that you buy it,
Hmm.
basically." So at the time we didn't have the money for it, like, so we just went and got a buy-to-let mortgage. You only needed in Ireland 30% of the purchase price. And myself and my husband, we had like decent jobs, decent salaries, so we got the mortgage no problem for this particular house. So we bought that in 2019. But as I said, during those 2 years, like there was bits and pieces kind of that needed replacing. So we were very, we were just like, oh, this is a nuisance. Like we're both working 50, 60 hours a week. And then to have a bloody tenant,
Yeah.
ring us because of this. And we were just going to get rid.
So you were self-managing
Um,
the
s-
property, or you were self-managing?
yeah. Oh, yeah, it was only up the road. It's only about 25 minutes up the road. And so, yeah, we were self-managing it. Um, then in 2021, I just had enough. I had enough of asking my bosses to take holidays. I was a real high achiever as well. Like I really kind of, when I was in a job, I really put my all
Hmm.
into it. And this particular job, say, I wasn't getting the recognition that I thought
Yeah.
I
It's very
I
common, that, right?
deserved.
Very
Um,
common.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because when
yeah.
you're
And
a high achiever like you are, and other people listening to this will be able to resonate, you go in every day, you give it your all, but then that just becomes, well, that's just Lisa O'Reilly, right? She's the best. She's hardworking. She always, the numbers are great, right? And that's just who you become. So it stops becoming appreciated.
exactly right. And like some of the stuff I was doing, like, would be unheard of. The speed at which I was doing things, and the accuracy of them. But yet, as you said, it was just becoming part of the norm. And then also, there was a lot of politics. As I was climbing the corporate ladder, what you soon realize is, and you see it a lot more as you go climbing higher, you see a lot more politics at play, and a lot more blaming, a lot more kind of playing the blame game.
Things get dirty at the
So
top,
I
right?
was. It does, especially in the big corporates. It can
Can't
get a little bit
trust
like that.
anyone. Your best
And
friend's going
I
to stab you in the back for a promotion, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, like, no, it wasn't all that bad, but it was just I was starting to get a sniff of that kind of
Hmm.
thing, and I just didn't like it. I just didn't like it, and I didn't like who I was going to have to become in order to get to the top, that kind of way. So that was it. I just decided, no, I can't do this anymore. So I read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich
Hmm.
Dad Poor
The
Dad.
staple.
And yeah, a sta I didn't know it was a staple. I'd never heard of it before. I was just kind of, it was a cross between being bored during COVID, but at the same time wanting to know what to do next. So just I was Googling, randomly Googling books to read, and Rich Dad Poor Dad came up. So I read that.
So at this
And
point,
because
property,
I have,
it wasn't, you know, I'm going to give up the corporate job and go into property. You were just like, I need something more. I need, you know, I know I can do more. There's got to be more to life. So you're looking for opportunities.
I was just looking, I was a bit desperate, to be honest. I didn't know what I needed to do, but I suppose I needed to be free of the ties of the corporate
Yeah.
world, you know. Um, and so, yeah, I read that book, and then it was all about property. It's all about like making passive income, income while you slept. And to me, that was just ideal because, as I said, like the first thing I'd ask when I go into a job is how many days annual leave is there, you know. I just really like that lifestyle. Um, so yeah, read that. He talked about property, and then I was like, oh, property. And so then I did a course, an online course, because it was during COVID. So I did Simon
Hmm.
Zucci's online property
Yep.
course, and it started saying about how to raise private money, how to raise private investor money. And I was like, yeah, that's completely. This all is making a lot of sense to me, you know, because previously I'd be thinking, get rid of debt, pay off my mortgage as quick as I can. Like I never had a car loan. I never, you know, I was trying to overpay my mortgage. I was crippling myself. I was actually putting myself into like tying myself to my corporate job because I was overpaying on my own home mortgage so much so, you know. So then the Simon Zucci course then made me realize, oh, hang on a minute, you know, there's ways to raise this private money in order to make money. Then I started to follow Kevin McDonnell in Progressive
Hmm.
Properties. And I liked the idea of him because I knew he was Irish and he had that Irish background, but equally, that is where he was, in the UK. So I actually jumped on a plane and I did one of his training courses. And then I soon realized this is it. I want to put myself into this 100%.
But
So
before you got to that point,
I,
Lisa, you obviously,
yeah.
after you read the Rich Dad Poor Dad, you, that
Mm.
was when the light bulb went off, right? And you, I mean, obviously you're incredibly, you know, articulate, and you know, you're a numbers person and very smart. That's obvious. But even for someone like you, and what's interesting about this is that maybe when you're very educated, obviously like you are, and you're taught a specific series of steps, right, that you go through in life to be successful, whatever successful is, and like you did, and like we're taught, you're taught to buy the house, pay down the debt. At some point, you become, you know, free of your mortgage, and you're in a good spot. But then you read books, you educate yourself, and then you realize, hang on a minute, not all debt is bad. You know, if I'm going to refinance my house and use it to go on cruises and to buy cars, yes, that's bad, toxic debt. But if I'm going to raise debt to then put that into assets that are going to, you know, bring me in income, multiple streams of it, then that's good debt. You know, and it's like, ding, hold on a minute. I shouldn't be working my fingers to the bone to pay down my residential mortgage. I should be using that money to generate more income, right, from different asset classes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'll give you put some numbers on this. Like I was overpaying my mortgage. I was paying 2,300 a month, by overpaying my mortgage per
Wow.
month, because I just wanted to. I was knocking about 15 or 20 years off my mortgage by doing that. As soon as I did this course, I reduced it back down to the minimum. I was back down to 600
Yeah.
euro a month, and I realized, you know, that what was I doing all along? Now, don't get me wrong. Like I'd love to
Of
get rid of
course.
my
Of
home
course.
mortgage because, you know, it's not an asset. It's you know, a cost at the end of the day.
But when you flip
But
upside
I'm
down,
not gonna.
like you realize that
Yeah.
through either refinancing your home or using that money that you're overpaying to put into other things, then, you know, build multiple streams of income, take that money and then use that money to pay off your mortgage, right? And you've
Yes.
still got all the additional income streams.
Yeah, and that's basically what I did then. So I suppose Kevin was great. He really taught us, like, kind of, he did role play with
Hmm.
us. He kind of and as I said, he got the Irish culture obviously because he's
Sure.
Irish. And so there they're a lot more harder to kind of convince to hand money over than say what maybe UK or US people maybe, you know. So he'd get that more than anything, you know. So he did a lot of role play with us and all that, and yeah. So the first couple of deals, I won't name them, but I went to people that say I know, like, or they knew, liked, and trusted me,
Hmm.
because that's the
Sure.
easiest place to raise money. So I was able to buy my first five properties from people that knew, liked, and
Hmm.
trusted me. Say, so they gave me money. I pulled together like an investor pack. Now looking back at it, it's actually nice to look at now. It was really amateur, but pulled together some sort of investor pack on PDF, and yeah, I was able to raise 100% loan to value. Say, so the full purchase price on one, two, three, four, five
All
properties.
from private investors, so no
They need
bridging, no banks.
no,
Wow.
no. So I was able to raise 100% from private investors. Those houses, I did a refurb on, but the other four were pretty, as I thought, good to go, sort of thing, you know.
And these are HMOs,
And it was
or were
then,
these buy to lets, or?
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was one thing I learned from Simon Zucci's course was the value of
Mm,
HMOs. So like splitting a pie into four
of course,
different
yeah.
like pieces as opposed to just selling the whole cake, you know. And the added benefit of HMOs in Ireland is there's no licensing
Yep.
required. So it's just standard rental kind of conditions that you have to follow.
Sorry,
So,
Lisa,
and
can I
also we've got a
go,
mass, yeah.
just to backtrack just a little bit? Let me ask you a couple of things about raising private investor finance. First of all, what would you say to, and again, I'm always like super aware that when people are listening to this, some of these things are light years away, or they think it is, right, in their current situation. So, what would you say to someone who's sitting at home, barely keeping the lights on, thinking, well, good for you, Lisa. You went out and raised, I don't know what we're talking here. Got to be, six, seven, 800,000 pounds, right? At least to buy five properties. I don't know where you bought them, but at a minimum, it's unimaginable for the majority of people. We know that when you have education and when you are able to relay information confidently and eloquently and be very clear on what you're saying and be very clear on your numbers, and when you're already dealing with people who know, like, and trust you, like you said, we know that it's possible. So what would you say to someone who's sitting at home thinking, sounds great, but there's no freaking way. I work in Tesco's, right? I'm barely keeping the lights on. This stuff's just not possible.
I would say that find the deal. So start looking around your area, and understanding, is your area the right area for investment, say. So it's all about finding your golden area. So I do some research on that. You can do a lot online. There's a lot of free information out there, even online. But I would always advocate for paid learning. Like I would go so far as say, look, take out a small loan if you have to, and get some proper paid learning, but get a good reputable company, because there's a lot of kind of trainers out there that would obviously just take anyone's
Mm,
money, say. But the one thing I would say is do paid education, check out your areas, and also go through your phone book, because you've got a list of contacts there that 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 you believe they've got money, and don't approach them yet. Get your homework done, get your research done. So first of all, you need to kind of get a bit of training, I would say, even free training if you have to. Find your property, and then you can approach. Then I've got a great deal here, and pull together like an investor pack, and all it's got to be is say a picture of the property, any plans that you plan on refurbing, what do you expect to be doing to the property, maybe split it into three or four, five bedrooms. How much can this achieve? So put all your numbers down, and then how much of an interest then that you plan on, say, paying, and it will show that then that you've done your homework. Like, even income minus all your costs equal, this is the profit you're going to be making, and this is the interest that they're going to be making. And I think it would be but the one thing I would say is it's not like, it is doable, and it is pretty simple, but it's not easy. Okay, so that's the one thing I'd like to kind of people to understand is that you're putting yourself out there. Like I never was on social media before this. I'm constantly on social media now, putting myself out there, getting people to kind of know who I am. So it's very simple to do. Like if you follow the rules and actually do the steps, but you really got to want it. And I suppose there's going to be a lot of people out there that are in their comfort zone. Like, yeah, they've got a job. Yeah, they don't really like it, but look, it's grand. It's paying the bills. They're in that kind of that limbo kind of
Appreciating the
comfort zone.
mediocrity that they're experiencing.
Yeah, and comfort is, what I realized was I don't want comfort. Like I'm always looking for the next thing, say the next opportunity. But equally, there's a lot of people out there that are just striving for that comfort. And the proper being in the property game and building a portfolio, is not a comfortable thing to be doing. And it's so yes, I would say it's very doable, and there is a path, and there is very much systemized ways to, number one, raise finance, number two, find the perfect property. It's very kind of prescriptive. However, you've got to follow it. And if you go on a lot of those training courses, you'll see that probably only maybe 80%, probably 80% won't actually do much. They're just like course junkies. 20% will actually do something. And when they do it and they follow it, then they can go really far.
Well,
But yeah,
that's
that's, I
what I'm,
suppose.
sitting here listening, and obviously we're, in somewhat the same circles, both being in property. We've both been on multiple training courses. I completely agree with everything that you're saying, about a lot of people not taking action. But the big thing that sticks out here is, yes, you can do it. Whatever your background, wherever you are today, right now, this second, today, no matter how dark it may be, with education, right? The ability and the knowledge to know how, right? You can do it, but it will never happen unless you have the mindset, right? And the grit and determination and the action taken that you need, like you said, to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? It's one of my favorite sayings, but it's true. Putting yourself out there, believing that you can do it, because until you believe that you can do it, that's the stuff that you put off, right? It's the vibes that you put out. You can read all the books, you could do all the courses, you could hemorrhage tens of thousands of pounds on all the training courses under the sun. But if you don't honestly, truly, absolutely, categorically believe that you can do it and you can raise money and you can develop this portfolio and you can change your life, the whole direction, and build this dream and this vision that you've got in your head, you won't even get started, right? So it doesn't matter about all the other stuff unless you've got the get up and go to say, I'm going to do this and I will not stop.
And you don't even need to, in my opinion, you don't need to even believe that it's going to be a 50 house
Yeah.
portfolio. I think all you've got to believe is believe that you will carry on no matter what. So you're going to have knockbacks. You're going to have, like, your first investor's going to turn around and go, no, no, I'm not investing. But don't be put off by that. Keep on going. If you've got that, if you can just believe that you can trust in your own selfless, even if you're only believing that you're only going to do the next two steps, and then after that it's going to be another two steps, and then after that it's going to be another two steps, eventually that portfolio, yeah, then you'll start believing in a 50, 50 properties in your portfolio. I don't necessarily think, and when I first went into this, I didn't have a number in my head. All I was confident was that when I needed to get out of the corporate world. I knew that. I don't know how I was gonna. I didn't know exactly how I was gonna do it, but I believed in I had confidence that I was going to continue and have the perseverance to keep on going, and then see where it got me. And then it's only kind of now, where like kind of 2.5, 3 years later, when I built up a portfolio, that now I'm like, I'm putting numbers to it. Okay, I want 50 properties in the next, say, 3 years. I want to have this much debt raised. It's only now that I'm kind of, putting together some figures. Um, but I suppose what I'm saying is that I was just confident that I was actually going to do it. I'm going to do something, and even if it's only dipping my toe in the water, I'm going to do it. And I think, but don't be put off by like all these people with these big portfolios, like
You don't necessarily need
in
that,
order to
right? In order to get to your own personal
no,
dream. You know, a couple of
no,
high yielding HMOs in the right area, done right, refinance right, you can be in a hell of a position. And also what I would say on top of what I just said previously is, and again, coming back to what some people might be sitting at home thinking, and I say that because I've been there, right? I'm the guy who looks at other people, pedestalizes other people, and says, well, it's okay for him or her because X, Y, Z. And I know that there'll be people who are at home who maybe aren't book people, right? Maybe they didn't even go to school. Maybe they're, in I don't know, laboring jobs, more manual jobs, right? They're not book people, they're not numbers people, they're not spreadsheet people. And I know that they might be listening to you, and the past that you've told us about being in the accountancy and all this kind of stuff, and thinking, well, I can't do any of that stuff, it's not possible for me. And I would say, you know, you can outsource. I'm not going to say that you don't need to have a basic understanding of every step of the process. You do, but all of that stuff, like the numbers, the analysis, the crunching, right? You can get help with that stuff. You can outsource a lot of that stuff. Yes, you need to have an understanding of it as much as you can, but you can't use that as something that's going to stop you from trying. And I always use Richard Branson as the best example, right? The guy can't even fill in his own check-in forms to go into a hotel, knows nothing about planes, nothing about trains, nothing about any of it. He just surrounds himself by the right people, right? He's the conductor, conducting the orchestra. So you can't let that put you off, even though you were on the front foot because you had a very strong, you know, numbers, your brain, the way that it works, but
background.
background, yeah. But anybody can do this, right? With training, with knowledge, with confidence being the biggest thing.
Well, sometimes start feeling sorry for myself and go, if only I was a builder, if only I had the construction background,
Right.
this would be so much easier for me. Like, no one's going to be everything. No one's going to be the builder, the numbers person, the person who's able to negotiate good deals, can talk to
Hmm.
everybody, can network, can do podcasts, can everybody's going to have their own set of strengths and weaknesses. And
Exactly.
by far, my weakness is building. Don't get me wrong, I hate it, and I've had to project manage all my own refurbs. It's only now that I'm actually starting to hire a project manager for the next job. But like like women say in construction, you tend to get people who like see me as a meal ticket, say, in the construction
Hmm.
trade, or this one's coming along now or whatever. So I've had to kind of how I've overcome that is I've had to become learn, basically. So learn from everyone. So if someone tells me about a damp issue, well, how do you deal with this damp, or how do you deal with boilers or whatever it is? I listen to them, but I actually learn. So then the next time round, if I get another kind of tradey coming in, I know what I'm
Hmm.
talking
Hmm.
about, so that they're not going to kind of screw me at every stage. But again, that's probably a bit of insecurity then on my side. They're probably not all going to try and
Hey, we've all got
screw me or
we've all
whatever.
got
But
insecurities, right? And what you just said is actually really important about how you can't know it all. And the person who's sitting at home listening to this saying, I don't know even know what Excel is, what is a spreadsheet. That person, I can almost guarantee, who doesn't read, right, who didn't finish school, that hasn't got all of these book smart education behind him or her, that person, I can almost guarantee, will be able to walk into a room, into a networking meeting or on a training course and light up the room, right? They're the people's person. They're the conversation starters, right? They're the networker. They're the deal doer, right? They're building relationships with agents and chasing leads and doing deals. So if you take that person and you connect them, or you collaborate that person with someone who's a really strong numbers person, that's when it's like, that's when the fireworks go off, right? And shit starts happening. So there's always a way.
absolutely. There's always a way. And if, as you said, like there's some people that I was talking to a guy there lately, and he's okay with numbers. He's not great with numbers. He's okay with project managing. He's not really that keen on like the construction side. But what I said, what do you really like doing? And he said, negotiating,
Mm.
hustling. And I was like, would you ever think about getting into deal sourcing then? And he was like, oh, what's that? And so I started explaining. He was like, yeah, that sounds like my perfect job. So like with property, I suppose there's different ways that you could, like, you don't necessarily have to go down the straightforward buy refurb
Yep.
whatever it's called, BRRR. You can do different kind of facets of the game. And like I would actually love to use him as my deal source, because that's something that I don't like doing either. I don't like negotiating with estate agents and getting into that kind of rat race. But if he came on board and started deal sourcing some properties,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think there could be money for everyone in it, you know. So,
It's the great thing
yeah, I
about
think it's
property,
just kind of
right?
working
There's
out.
so many different ways of skinning the cat. You know, like you said, there's deal sourcing, there's purchasing, there's refurbs, there's flips, there's HMOs, there's service accommodation. There's so many different strategies that you can go down. And you know what I found is that most people, you know, maybe they'll go to an event where they learn, you know, you get a basic, you know, understanding, you know, of each of them, but there'll always be something that resonates and you walk out thinking, hell yeah, like I could see myself like being a deal source, you know, I love the sound of that. So, you know, like you said, there's so much opportunity. So
Mm.
let's move it forward a little bit. I see time's flying here because it's you know such a good conversation. So you picked the HMO model, right? That was where you saw, you know, and I, by the way, I do serviced accommodation, but I fully buy into the HMO model because, you know, it's basic supply and demand, right? There's not enough properties. No one can afford the properties. Nobody's making any more money. Everything's getting more expensive. So what's the only possible thing that a lot of people can do, especially younger people, right? You house share essentially, right? Which is what a HMO is. Why don't you tell us, Lisa? And again, being aware of, you know, some people listening might not even know what a HMO is. Just give us a real brief synopsis of what is a HMO.
So a HMO is a property, maybe a 3, 4, 5 bedroom property, whereby rather than rent it out to a full family, say, you rent out 5 rooms to individuals who don't know each other. So what that tends to mean is that you think of students is the easiest one to think of. Is you put 5 different students into the house and they take it for 9 months of the year. Students is one particular model you can go down. I actually don't do students personally. I do young professionals. I run 2 different models with my HMOs. One is for, say, the blue collar workers, the lower income workers, and those houses I haven't put as much, say, money in terms of the design and the refurb into them. And then more recently, then I try to dabble into the more higher end HMOs. Now, this has not been done in my area. Especially down south of Ireland here, down in Waterford, where we're going to go for the more higher end HMOs. When I say higher end, I mean TVs in all their rooms, like real high end, brand new bathrooms, like modern fancy bathrooms gone into each of their bedrooms, double beds, kind of Wi-Fi
Hmm.
in all the rooms, all the bills are paid for, and then a really nice kind of kitchen dining room area. So I've gone down that route, and I'm trying to test to see, because it's not really a tried and tested concept as much as what it would be in the UK. I'm trying to test the market and see, I can put more money into a refurb, and this is the money I can achieve on the back end, or I put less money into the refurb, and this is the kind of money I can achieve. So I'm still testing it at the moment. It seems like the higher end ones, the higher end refurbs, they actually generate more longer term income. And with HMOs, I'm trying to get like a 12-month kind of turn. Like, I don't want my tenants to move out for, say, 12 months. So I'm testing how I can keep them there a little bit longer and see, just trying to work it all out at the
Hmm.
moment, because I'm still only kind of like relatively new to it. Um, then I have 2 short-term Airbnbs. So they're both really slap bang central city location houses. They're actually two doors away from each other, side by side, more or less. And I got an interior designer to come in to design them. So I spent a good bit more getting these kind of
Are
designed.
these ones
They're two
that
three
you
bedroom
own, Lisa,
houses.
or are these rentals?
Yeah. No,
Ones that
they
you
all
own.
I own
Okay,
them all.
so
Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't mind dumping some money into them, which is good.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, all the properties I'm talking about, I raise private lender finance. I buy the
Mm,
properties, and I then refinance them out. But I decide what I do with the properties once I own them. So I tried Airbnb on two of them. If I had my way, I think I would do them all short-term Airbnb, um, because I think the demand is there. I think putting high quality design into these places, you can achieve a much better
nightly rate.
kind of room nightly rate. And yeah, I just and there's less wear and tear on on the houses with the short terms because they don't tend to cook, so they're not really
Sure.
using the kitchen. All it is they're using the bathroom and the bedroom, really. And you're achieving a really high nightly rate. So if I had my way, it would all be short-term rentals. But the reason why I'm saying if I had my way is because in Ireland we have a housing crisis, and it means that the EU are bringing in, and I think Ireland are adopting it this year, whereby they're going to be restricting all of the short-term rentals. They're going to
Hmm.
be requiring planning
Hmm.
permission for them. So because it is such, that is kind of, I know change is
Coming.
coming. I'm only going to do the two, going to see how it goes when the changes do come into play, and then I'll work out then what the strategy is going forward. But basically, I'm not just kind of saying this is what I do and that's it.
I
I'm
think it's
yeah,
a really really clever business model. And if I was ever going to, if someone sat me down and said, right, you want to build, some kind of financial security in property, how are you going to go about it? I would do exactly that. I would have a high yielding, high demand, right, HMOs that, as long as you've got the fundamentals, some transport links, right, demand, whatever, they're going to be rented all year long, right? So you can almost sit back and guarantee those returns. That's solid. That's sustainable, right? That's not going anywhere. And then you throw into the mix some really high cash flowing serviced accommodation properties. And I think that is a really, really nice mix, that's going to get you to your end goals. So what I said at the start about, how I liked what you were doing because you were, the if you was to open up the dictionary and look at the term, entrepreneur, it would I haven't done it, but I would imagine it would say something along the lines of someone who, you know, is aware of a gap in the market and knows how to exploit that, right, in order to make financial gain. And you said to me when we had a brief call prior to this, and we spoke about what it was that you were doing. You said that you came to the UK, or you came to England. You did some property training, right? You learned about the
yeah.
HMO model, and you're like, the light bulb went off because you thought, hold on a minute, in Ireland, right? This isn't really a thing. So then you took that knowledge back there, and you're obviously doing really well with it.
Yeah, yeah. I realized that we all know here that the housing crisis is savage, like it really is. So and the other thing I suppose is important to mention as well is in Ireland, the tenancy laws are very much in favour of the tenants in Ireland. So there's a lot of landlords actually leaving the market at the
Yeah,
moment. So most of the laws are in favour of the
I've
tenants,
been through
say,
the courts
and
a
also
bunch of
there's rent.
times. Yeah, as a landlord. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's rent caps as well,
Hmm.
right? So they brought in rent caps in, I think it's 2019. So basically, you can't increase your rents more than 2% per year. So even though last year, say, in the last 18 months, we've been having these real high interest rate increases, you can't increase the rents in the same
Well, you mean
capacity. So
they didn't
therefore,
cap the cost of materials and bills for landlords at the same time as they capped rent increases?
they literally brought in the rent caps overnight, say. So I had one property that wasn't in the rent zone area, rent cap area, and then overnight it turned into a rent pressure zone and rent cap. So it was capped at whatever rent that was I had it at the time. So now that was lucky because we didn't get any more further increase, maybe I had one more interest rate rise since then. But people, they were stopped. Say they were renting out their houses for maybe six, seven, 800 euro, maybe around 4 or 5 years ago. Then they increased it by 2% every year, right? Which is a tiny amount of money. But then in the last 18 months, interest rates have gone up by like literally 2,
Sure.
3%. Buy to let interest rates have gone up by that. So now they're actually loss making and they've got no option. They've got to sell because they can't increase the rents. Even if they kind of kick that tenant out and then do some work to the property and then re-rent it out, it's pretty strict guidelines. Like you still can't increase the rent
Yeah.
really. It's got to be at the last rent that was set. So basically, that coupled with the rent, like the housing crisis that we've got, I realised that HMO, that model,
Solid.
would really work. And also, it just serves it serves a really good purpose because there's youngsters out there who are, there's really big companies located around, say, where I live anyway, like big farmers, and they might live here for maybe 18 months, 2 years, while they've got a contract role. They're on decent salary, but they just can't get a house. So they're very happy to kind of come to the area and, live with someone that they don't know, but then they get to know them and it
Mm.
becomes like a social thing then as well. So it is a really good,
Is it?
it does definitely does
Isn't it
work.
ironic that I always think this, like you are genuinely okay, you're making money, right? We all need to make money, but I can tell, and I think you'd agree, that you get a lot of value in the fact that you are providing a solution, right, to the housing crisis, which the government hasn't found a solution to. You're now providing beautiful homes to these students or these working professionals, right, or blue collar workers, which is great. You're bringing good to the world, but then you're still going to get all these people that are like, huh, yeah, Lisa, the greedy landlords, buying up all the property. But the silly thing about it is that, and it's the same in England, the government are crippling landlords, right? Section 24, taxes, rent caps, all this kind of stuff. Luckily, we haven't got rent caps yet, but it'll probably come. Way too much power on the tenant side, right? Like I said, I've been through the courts multiple times. You do your best, but sometimes tenants just can't keep up with the payments. They fall into arrears. And then the council says, oh, just stay put, stay in the property. The landlord can't kick you out. He's going to have to go through the court, spend a bunch of money. You get at least 6, 7 months out of him, right? All that stuff means that landlords are exiting the business. What does that do? Does that solve the housing crisis? Does that all of a sudden mean that properties are coming available for purchase? Now, all of a sudden, the people that were renting in the first place can now say, great, we can now buy that property because it's become available. No, they haven't got the deposits and they can't afford, they can't raise the finance. So it doesn't do anyone any good. Of course, there needs to be some kind of regulation and, can't let landlords do whatever they want. But what's the other solution, right? Look after landlords, make sure they're doing the
It's
right job, make sure they're doing an ethical job to a certain extent, and let them provide the solution.
Well, that's it. Like, the government are not going to solve the issues at the moment. They just can't. Like in Ireland, we need 50,000 new houses built every year for the next, I think it's 5 or 6 years. And even that is
Mm.
underestimated. And we don't have the land, we don't have the labor. They're all emigrating. Like they're not there to do that. So HMOs are 100% are needed. There is a niche in the market for that. And my thing is that if they encouraged landlords, giving us some tax incentives, taking away some of these rent caps, I think it's going to, if you let the more, what I'm trying to say is if you let the market dictate itself or self-regulate itself, you're going to get the crappy houses, the crappy landlords, and they're going to attract the crappy
Hmm.
tenants, right? And let them do that. That's fine. But then you've got the landlords like myself who want to put a bit of extra money into the properties, and I want to attract a higher class tenant and therefore a higher rental income. Well, let the market
Hmm.
dictate that. Like we don't need this amount of like this kind of blank canvas. All houses should be capped at this level, and we're protecting the tenants and all the rest of it. Like you said about the council telling the tenants don't move because the landlords can't kick you out anyway. That's exactly what they're doing in
Mm.
Ireland. There's a body being set up. It's called Threshold. The tenants ring them, say like a I'm falling into pressure. What should I do?
Mm.
Stay there. Just don't
Yeah.
say anything. Don't even open the door to accept the letter, because if you can't accept the letter, then they can't
Yeah.
bring you to court.
It's
You've got
bullshit.
all this like
Yeah.
working against
Yeah.
you, and it's complete bullshit. But
Yeah.
it's the world we're
You
living in.
know, call me a capitalist or whatever, but I'm a firm believer in, if you got two, I think I've said this on another podcast, but if you got two arms, two legs, a brain that works, right, you can hold a conversation, you can look someone in the eyes, and you've got a roof over your head and the basics that you need to live, then you've got an opportunity, right, to achieve, within reason. So, you know, I just don't agree with any of that stuff. If you've scrapped and fought and pushed and challenged yourself and invested and grown and struggled, and you've got to a point where you own a few properties, right? Good on you. You know, you you,
Yeah,
you've achieved. You're doing the best with what you've got. And I honestly believe. Don't get me wrong. If you're born in a slum in India, right, that's different. But still, there are some examples, right, of people that have absolutely killed it who have come out of that situation of hardship. So, look at that and say, okay, all right, I'm not exactly where I want to be, but, I can convert, I can converse, I can learn, I can retain information, I can invest a little bit here, I can read this. There's, like you said, there's so much free information these days. There's always an opportunity to grow and change the direction of your life. So, I say support people who are trying to do the best that they can, right, and grow and achieve and become their best selves. Because without that, without getting into the whole trickle down economic thing or whatever, but you need people who are going to go out and build shit, right, and do good things and provide and create jobs. Otherwise, nothing else works. But anyway, we're going off piste. Lisa, as the
oh,
yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, don't get me started. But as the clock ticks away here, I want to know why you're doing it, where you're trying to get to, what's the end goal, what's the vision, what's the dream, where do you want to be in, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years time? What's the timeline and where do you want to get to?
I wish I could answer this definitely, and I'm still kind of trying to work out what the end goal is. My thing is I always want to do better than what I did yesterday or the day before. I'm all like at this stage now. I don't need my sister to be in competition with. It's myself I'm in competition with. So it's always just trying to do more, do better, kind of try different things. I love trying different things. So I suppose what I've said is I want to raise more money, private lending money. I probably want to grow my portfolio to 50 properties in the next, I said 5 years, but I'd like to do that in the next 3 years. If I can get some bigger developments underway, I think that could be
You're
possible.
looking at
So
commercial
I'd like
stuff
to do
too, or are
some
we talking HMOs and
kind of, yeah, no, kind of like
developments?
develop commercial to
Mm.
resi,
All those empty
I'd like to get a
shops?
couple of those under my belt. Yeah, to try and see, what they are like. Because I'm all about putting systems and processes in place and to leverage my time more wisely. There's just as much work goes into raising, say, 150,000 as there would be to raise 1.5 million. In my case, so I think that if I could, leverage my time more wisely and possibly go into a joint venture with someone, because up until now, I'm only doing it all by myself, say, and I think if I could maybe joint venture with someone and we could go further and bigger, I think I'd like to possibly explore that. And yeah, just kind of keep on doing what I'm doing. I suppose I've got two young kids, and I love traveling. So I love 5 holidays a year is my ideal. My sister lives in Australia permanently, so I'd love
Is
to
this big? Is
regularly
this
go
big
out and visit
sis?
her.
She moved to Oz.
This is the big
Right,
sis.
right.
Yeah, she moved to us, so she's bet me on that
Trying to outdo
front.
you in all areas.
Yeah, she's definitely outdone me there anyway. I'm stuck in the rainy old island.
But you got a free place to
But
stay at least.
yeah. Yeah, we were actually over there at Christmas there for a
Where
couple of
where
weeks, so it
where
was
is she
lovely.
in Sydney
Um,
or
so she's in Perth.
okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
and she's climbing the corporate ladder again. She's a chartered accountant as well, so she's doing really well over there. And no, she just just trying to, I suppose. I can't say exactly. I would like a holiday house in, say, somewhere hot like Spain or Portugal. So that is somewhere down the line as well I'd like to do, and just yeah, keep on doing what I'm like doing, but be happy, and also always maintain control of what I'm doing. I would never ever, even if someone offered me thousands of euros, I would never go back to the corporate world. I just love my autonomy. I love my control now. I've managed to replace my income, so I don't need to go back to the corporate world now. But just kind of keep on exploring and seeing how I can grow more. You know.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. How was it, Lisa, on the day, when you handed in your notice in your big high flying corporate job? Because no doubt, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably walked away from, a nice big private pension, all the other benefits. I don't know, maybe you had a car or whatever, obviously a nice big paycheck. So, you know, how was that? Was that a scary moment? Must have been.
Scary, exhilarating, like shitting myself to be
Yeah, no
honest. I
doubt.
didn't know like what was this the right move. Um yeah, I used to pass my work every day as I was heading into my new properties that I was after buying. And every day I used to look down going, oh my God, I'm so lucky. Imagine I could be driving into that industrial
Yeah.
estate to having to go working every day. So I used to, at the beginning, I was thanking my lucky stars every day I used to pass it. But yeah, it's super kind of scary. I suppose I wasn't completely like my husband's got his business as well, so we wasn't completely like reliant on this money, but equally we were reliant on the lifestyle we were after creating. And there's this thing about you know. I used to think about keeping up with the Joneses when I was in the corporate world. Now, I don't care about that. Like, I really just do what I want to do now, and I don't care about keeping up with the Joneses. But when I was considering leaving my job, I was like, oh, but what about if this person or that person thinks,
Mm.
I had all that awareness that, I could fail. And if I failed, they'd all be laughing at me and all the rest of it. Look, now it really doesn't bother me anymore. I've got my own mission going on. And yeah, it's a great feeling. Now, don't get me wrong. The stress sometimes that because we're both business owners, myself and my husband, and sometimes we just look at each other and go, why are we doing this? Like, we could be so comfortable in a 9 to 5 job and leave it all behind us at 5 o'clock.
Because
But
that
yeah,
it
we do
potentially
have.
in 5 years you could be done, right? And that wouldn't happen in the
Yeah.
job. And that's why
Yeah, that's it.
you look. I'm not going to sit here and say that entrepreneurialism, business ownership is for everybody, but I would say for anybody who's thinking about it, but maybe erring a little bit more on the side of just kind of playing it safe, and I know what I'm going to get at the end of the week, and it's predictable and it's easy, and I've got my plan. When you take that leap, and it should always be a calculated leap, that some of these people that say, oh yeah, just jack it all in, you've got to go all in, you've got to commit. When you're in a position to do that, yes, right? When you've got a cushion, when you say, okay, I know I've got 12 months of breathing space here, right? And I can give it my all and I can get started. That's different. But people should know that when you move into a place where you are all of a sudden in control of your own destiny, right? Even if you have to take 10, 50, 100 steps backwards, there is something that's, like you said, shit scary, but also massively like, I don't know, like the idea of waking up and knowing that you are in control, right? If I want to do this, I can. If I want to do that, I can. If I want to work 7 days or 2 days, or you are in complete control of your life, complete control of how fast you want to go, whether you want to go by yourself or with other people, like you said, how big you want to grow, how much you want to scale, where you want to do it, right? All of these things become, and you know, yesterday I was with a friend and we was doing the whole whiteboard mind mapping thing, right? And she's, just got the most incredible brain. And I'm there with the pen and I'm like, I want to do this. And like, I'm ordering things of, what's got the best chance of, hitting it big, and what's going to take the longest, and what's going to make the most money, and what's going to be the most passive. And you're like a kid in a candy shop because all of a sudden you don't have a boss saying, I want you here at 9 o'clock and you take care of those reports. And then, it's like, no, I can go as far as I want, as quick or as slow as I want. And as long as every day I get up, right, and I give it my best, It might not happen overnight. It might take months, years, whatever. But as long as every day, like you said, you're just pushing forward, doing the best you can, learning every single day, moving forward, right? Learn a little bit more, honing in on your direction, chiseling like your focus and your end dream and your vision. That's like so exhilarating to me, just the control aspect. Yeah, it's scary at the same time, but knowing that anything's possible, right? Anything's on the table. That's awesome.
But like they say that back in the day, like, your parents, your grandparents, they would have had the benefit of cheap housing, say, and that was their benefit. But more or less, their career path was kind of chosen for them. They used to go down the route of like whatever their families expected of them or what their parents were even doing. Now, yes, we have really expensive housing and we have some limitations. And, you've got kids now growing up with the iPhones and, communication can be an issue. But actually, what we've also got is a chance that, and this is something that was never drilled into me during school or during college, it was very prescribed. But actually, you've got the internet. Like anybody's got access to do
Yeah.
whatever they want. I think we were just talking before this, like you could do a course on any kind of niche, and your
People
audience
don't
is
realize
the
this.
world.
People don't realize
They
this.
don't realize it. Now, it's not easy. Don't get me wrong. It's not easy. And, I wouldn't go off and create a course on, I don't know, how to groom dogs or whatever, because I have no interest in dogs whatsoever. Like, find something that you're really, really interested in. And, like, if you really, like, sit down and put hours into something and really understand it and be willing to learn, but more importantly, be willing to fail. Because, as I said, when I was going through the corporate world, failure wasn't really an option. Like my whole persona was, I'm Lisa, I'm the chartered accountant, I can't get anything wrong, I know everything sort of thing, that kind of way. Whereas now I'm just like, no, do you know what? I'm gonna dip my foot into it. I'm gonna see, does it work? If it don't work, I just hold my hands up and I'll
Mm.
learn from it and try and get as much learning and move forward, as opposed to thinking that failure has defined me. And I suppose you've just got to be a bit more kind of humble, a bit more, willing to make mistakes, but also kind of laugh at yourself, but have vision. Keep moving forward. Don't let something stop you. Keep moving forward. But then also then having that kind of 50-50 hindsight to think, well, actually, maybe that ain't the right path for me. If I keep on feeling like
Pivot.
this, there could be something that's telling me, maybe pivot and
Yeah.
move on to something
And again,
else,
it comes back
Um,
to the fact that all of a sudden you have the opportunity to do that. And what you just said about the whole course thing, what we was talking about, people don't realize every single person, if you are breathing and working and living person, whatever you think, however shit you think your life is, and however useless you think that you are, which a lot of us do, we all have our issues, insecurities, self-esteem, whatever. You have value in your head, which has value, right? That knowledge in your head has value. If you are, I don't know, if you spend every weekend in your shed fixing broken down lawnmowers, right? And you're shit hot at that. You literally can today in 2024 go online, either pay a company or learn how to do it yourself, and you can build a short course, right, on how to fix lawnmowers. And if you price it right, and if you market it right, and if you get it in front of the right people, thousands of people around the world will buy that course, because there are thousands of
yeah,
people who also love fixing lawnmowers, but they don't know where to start. And if your course is
mm,
19.99 and they're going to learn how to fix their lawnmower, they're going to buy your course.
that's it.
It's a
Yeah, there's just
different
so many
world that we're
opportunities.
living in.
It is. I know a guy who loves like horse racing and betting and betting on matches and things like that. And he set up his kind of like some sort of Patreon
Yeah,
following where
Patreon's great.
they're following his advice on you can do anything you want to do. You don't have to be stuck in a 9 to 5 job. And I think that our era anyway, when we went to school and college, and I think it's getting a bit better, but it's still not there yet. It really is,
So
what are you good at?
archaic.
Oh, I'm good at
Mm,
maths. Yeah, if you're good at maths, and look into accountancy or
yeah.
business. Are you good at science? Okay, go down the scientific route. It's very kind of like one track minded, and it's all kind of geared towards getting yourself a good corporate job with a good pension. But what people don't realize about pensions, is, yeah, you put away into a pension. I don't actually have a pension
I don't.
myself. You put away into yeah, you put away into a pension for what? For when you're 65, 67, I think
67
it
now, I
is.
think.
Like now's the time when I want to go traveling, not when I'm 67. Like at that stage, God knows what's
Yeah.
gonna be happening. I could have anything wrong with me and I won't be able to do it. So I'm not gonna like I'm all for kind of, delayed gratification, but not that delayed. That is way too delayed for me.
I'm
So
surprised there's any.
I
I'm
don't have a
surprised there's
pension.
any space on the internet for other social clips outside of the amount of crap I've been talking about this topic. It's so I bang on about it all the time. It's so upside down, back to front, and effed up. That you work the best years of your life in the cubicle, and the most ridiculous thing about it is I'll be all right. Retire at 65. I'm gonna live life then. There is a very good chance, unfortunately, without sounding morbid, that you're not going to get there, right? There's some, as we know, some awful things happening in the world, and you can do everything right, eat well, exercise, don't smoke, don't drink, and one day, it's all over. So we have to live life for today, right? We cannot wait. And I'm all about building a business. If it takes you 5 years, 10 years, whatever, but start the journey to get to a place where eventually you can remove yourself physically from the business, right? You are earning money without physically needing to be there, escaping the time for money exchange trap, because that is what kills people. You need to get into a position where you're not selling your finite time. And when you was at the accountancy firm, whatever you was being paid, that number was placed on your time by someone, right? They said, all right, Lisa, based on X, Y, Z, based on what you know, based on how much time you're going to spend in the office, we think that your finite time that you'll never get back is worth X. That's what we're going to give you in return. And you're selling your time, right? It's absolutely nuts. So you have to start.
But
Yeah,
that's how helpful my knowledge was valued at. And see, the thing is that value is going to get less and
yeah.
less and less. Like the more we got ChatGPT, the
Oh,
AI, all these knowledge-based jobs, they're going to be needed less and less, unless you can find a way, kind of, to work with artificial intelligence. But like, I even use kind of ChatGPT to come up with certain kind of paragraphs for some of my
mm.
contracts. So that knowledge base, the solicitors, the accountants, that
It's all coming to
knowledge-based
an end.
industry is gonna it's it, well it's the, if it's not coming to an end, there's definitely gonna be massive change coming down the road. And when you work in a corporate job, in those type of jobs, your value is based on how many people you can help, I think. And you can help. So I was working for a corporate company. I can help one corporate company achieve their financial statements every year and their monthly management accounts. That's worth X. But however, that's one company. I'm now out kind of providing accommodation to, I think I've got like over 60 tenants now. So that means that my income now is excrementally growing with the number of people that I can actually help. I can solve their problem, i.e., their housing problem, and there's no limit to that as long as I've got a
Yeah,
model kind of that
you're in
works.
control.
So yeah, I think the more people that you can service, the more people that the more money that you can make. And I think that when you get into business, what you realize is there's I very much had a poor when I was working in the corporate world. Very much had a poor me mindset. This person did me wrong. That person did me wrong. It's not fair. I'm not getting my pay rise. I just saw myself entitled to a pay rise every year. I saw myself entitled to a bonus every year. And it was like that poor me mindset, say, if I didn't get what I was expecting to get. Whereas now there is no poor me. It's like I'm creating my own wealth, and I can
Oh yeah,
see that the more effort I put in and the cleverer I get with my strategies, the more money I can actually make, and I'm in control of that. That's the most
yeah.
important thing, is that I can control it.
Absolutely love it. Yeah, yeah. Don't rely on the government to look after you when you get older, because there's a pretty big chance that it's not going to happen. So
No, don't get me wrong. I definitely will draw down the pension when
yeah,
I'm set, whatever it
yeah,
is, the
yeah.
state
Take what's
pension. I'm not
there.
gonna,
Take what's
I'm
there,
not
but
gonna, I'm gonna take what's
don't
there. Yeah,
depend on it, is what I'm saying. But yeah,
yeah.
Lisa. I mean, I'm aware of the time here as we fly, and there's so much good stuff here. Just to reflect back to you, I'm sure you're aware of it, but very inspiring. Like I said, women in business. I think it's fantastic. Powering through, proving everybody wrong. Achieving this incredible business, and kudos to you also for having the guts to step out of you know a really high paying job, right, which was safe and comfortable. I almost think it's easier to get into entrepreneurship when your back's up against the wall, when you don't have any other options, right, where you're fighting for your life. A lot of the time, a lot of the stories and books that you read, that's normally where it comes from, but I almost think that it's more admirable when people make the conscious choice to say, yeah, I did well, but I want more, right? And to make the choice to step out of that and take the risk and step off the ledge. So, yeah, I think that's awesome. I just want to finish up here, Lisa, with something that I like to ask all the guests, just to be a little bit vulnerable, if you don't mind. And again, I'm a big advocate for mental health. I've had my own struggles. I think pretty much everybody does, whether they talk about it or not. I think it's becoming more talked about, which I think is great, right? Because there's a lot of people struggling. But I'm aware that a lot of people listen and watch these podcasts, and they pedestalize people, and now you're in a good position, and it's easy to say, Lisa's flying, she's setting the world on fire, right? She's got it all going on, sky's the limit. But this comparison thing, I think, is a big issue, especially with social media. So would you mind, just simply, if I ask you the question, and be as vulnerable or honest with it as you can be, but would you say that you're happy today with where you are, and have you always been in a good place leading up to where you are today?
I am, no, definitely I am happy overall. I'm grateful. I'm very grateful. I like to look back and go look at the gratitude here. Look where I've come. But don't get me wrong, like there's days, as I said, myself and my husband, we're running a business now, and we look at each other and we go, what are we, excuse me, what are we doing all this for? Like, where I can struggle is through my sleep. So if I've got a lot going on, and my mind is whirring, I suffer with not being able to fall to sleep, and I suppose I would compared to before and after entrepreneurship, I probably would have always suffered with my sleep. I come across as a very confident person, and I am. I'm really confident in my everyday. But then that's where it comes out is in my sleep, and that can struggle. Compared to say before and after I started this journey, um, this is exciting to me. What I'm doing every day is exciting. But then equally, it can then lead to sleep problems again. And I can't sleep basically some nights. So I suppose it all comes down to, I don't think everyone's got it all sorted, to be honest. I think if anyone tells you that they have
Mm,
their mental health issues kind of sewn up, I don't believe
mm.
so. I think that our brain is so complex.
Just because they're driving a
And I
Lamborghini doesn't
think
mean they're happy, right? Or their lease
it
Lamborghini.
doesn't mean that. No, absolutely, it doesn't mean. And you can see some people, so I look at some people and they're there and they're, the best mothers, and they're giving all their time to their kids, and I'd be thinking, oh, they look so happy, and why am I not playing with my kids? And I'm off, kind of, I'm in Dublin at the moment doing like a networking event up in Dublin. My kids are at home, and I'm not going to be seeing them tonight, and so sometimes I kind of, should I be like that? But then I'm like, just like, you know what, I'm doing my best. Like, just back from Centre Parks with the kids,
Nice.
like, so do you know what, I'm not going to be worried about. I have to kind of, what's the word, I have to kind of sit myself down and compartmentalize it and rationalize it in my head as to, this is why I'm doing it, and yes, I'm happy. But yeah, there's definitely times when it does all come on top of me, and then I just be like, my head's about to explode. But what I am confident is, I'm confident that with time, and a glass of
Yeah.
wine, I am able to come back and come back to an equilibrium. Like I never let that kind of go on for more than maybe 3 or 4 days. I'm always able to bring it back round to an equilibrium. So that's where I'm kind of I know that I'm confident in myself that I am able to do it, because ultimately, like, I'm lucky. I'm here. I'm alive. I'm doing what I want to do. I've got 2 kids. There's no issues with my kids. I've got a
Mm,
great, loving family. Like, in the bigger scheme of things, I'm the luckiest person
yeah.
around. So if I just keep on thinking about all the how grateful I am, the gratitude that I've actually got, that's when it's like brings me back
Back
to
to a
reality.
happy
If someone
place.
said
Yeah.
that to me though, when I'm in the middle of being stressed, you should be grateful because you got
Yeah.
this, and don't,
And
like,
turn
I'd
around,
blow up at them.
punch
Like,
him in,
no, don't
punch him
talk
in the
to me.
nose. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that answers that, and yeah, I just like to ask that, because I think it's easy to pedestalize people who are apparently, got it all going on, and we've all got our issues, our struggles, and our insecurities, and our challenges, and you know, I think you just got to do your best, right? Like you said. So just get up, do your best, keep pushing forward, have a dream, have a vision, but go after it. The biggest regret, the thing that scares the life out of me, and we read about it, we hear it all the time, is the person on their deathbed saying, fuck, I'm just realizing that I had one shot and I blew it because I was scared, right? So just, yeah, remember that. But Lisa O'Reilly, it's been a pretty cool conversation with you, and thanks so much for telling your story. Very inspiring. I hope it inspires other people to go after their dreams and get busy and go out there and smash it. So thanks so much for coming on, and can't wait to catch up with you in real life somewhere and have a glass of wine. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks,
Thanks so
Alex.
much, Lisa. And for everybody listening at home, we'll see you again next week on the Airbnb Nomads podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in.